Just because a supporting character plays second fiddle to the main character does not mean that the importance of his introduction should be neglected. Hey guys, how are you doing today? It's PE Gilbert, your blogger, writing consultant, and the author to the fantasy novella, The Sultan's Daughter. And today we shall discuss part 2 on how to introduce your supporting characters. But before we go any further with today's video, hit that subscribe button. In part 1 of this topic, we discussed the first 3 or 5 different types of secondary characters, depending upon how you look at it, and these were 1. The useful assistant, 1a. His devious cousin, the ambiguous, unreliable ally, 2. The supportive friend, and 2a. His poor cousin, the fat, funny friend, and 3. The love interest. Today, we shall look at the final 3 different types of secondary characters, as well as when they have been introduced to their respective stories and how they have been introduced to their respective stories. And I hope my tips make the writing process a little easier for you as well. 4. How to introduce the mentor. The mentor is usually an older figure who guides the central protagonist toward his goal, and it usually takes the form of a father, a mother, a friend, or a teacher. For our first example, let's look at Brom from Christopher Paolini's The Inheritance Cycle, and played by Jeremy Irons in the film adaptation of Eragon, the first book in the series. We meet Brom when he tells the story over a campfire in the village of Carverhall about the fall of the Dragon Riders. Our eponymous main character, Eragon, is listening to Brom's story. He is a new dragon rider and is in need of knowledge and training. So who better to be Eragon's mentor than Brom? Thus, from the moment we meet Brom, we gain the sense that 1. He has a pensive appearance and is going to be the mentor figure for Eragon, since it is a fantasy trope that the old man/wizard is a mentor to the main character. 2. That he will have to teach Eragon a lot in a short time. 3. That there is more to Brom than what meets the eye. And 4. That he lives in a medieval-like fantasy world with a villainous, all-powerful king in complete control. Our second example surrounds a very different type of mentor, one who is far more demanding, to put it mildly, and that is conductor Terence Fletcher, played by J.K. Simmons in Whiplash. We meet Fletcher in the opening scene, watching Andrew Neiman, played by Miles Teller, play the drums. Andrew notices Fletcher and stops playing. Fletcher then emerges from the darkness to dominate the screen. He has an imposing presence due to his size, and the all-black suit and shirt add to his authoritative aura. Fletcher then questions Andrew, probingly, as to why he stopped playing, because Fletcher is looking for players. Subsequently, Andrew continues playing, but in the middle, Fletcher just walks out. He gives no hint either as to whether he is impressed by Andrew's skills, or not. From Fletcher's introduction, we get the sense that 1. Fletcher is intimidating, difficult to please, and not a particularly nice person. 2. That he is looking for talented people for one reason or another. 3. That he and Andrew are going to have many more conversations in a teacher-pupil relationship in which he is going to push Andrew hard. And 4. That Fletcher is the head of the music school and his decisions count. Moreover, Fletcher is introduced to us in the very first scene of the movie, highlighting that he has a very important role to play as Andrew's mentor. 5. How to introduce the bad influence. The bad influence is something of an inverted mentor. If the mentor is meant to guide the protagonist toward his goal, the bad influence leads him astray. For example, let's look at Lord Henry Wotton from The Picture of Dorian Gray, and played by Colin Firth in the film adaptation Dorian Gray in 2009. We are introduced to Lord Henry Wotton in the opening scene of the book. As Basil the painter paints the portrait of the titular Dorian, Lord Henry waffles on about the virtues of a hedonistic lifestyle, which he clearly doesn't abide by, as he is a married man and a faithful husband. Lord Henry's sardonic assertion that beauty is the only aspect of life worth pursuing makes Dorian realise that he will grow old, but that the portrait of him will not. Subsequently, Lord Henry encourages Dorian to enter into a Faustian pact, so that the portrait of him will age, but that he will not. As a result, Dorian pursues a life of decadence and debauchery, ever at Lord Henry's insistence. Thus, from the off, we realise that Lord Henry is witty and intelligent, but that he will be a bad influence on the young, impressionable Dorian. 2. That he is a hypocrite, as he does not practice what he preaches. 3. That he will find new ways to regurgitate his hypocrisies throughout the narrative to ensure that he lives vicariously through Dorian. And 4. That Lord Henry lives at the tail end of Victorian England, when hypocritical morality was the way of life. In addition, that we are introduced to Lord Henry in the opening scene highlights his narrative significance. 6. How to introduce the traitor. When you decide to make a secondary character a traitor, you must introduce him early to the story and make him friends, or at least allies, with the main character. In the 1998 film Snake Eyes, Detective Rick Santoro, played by Nicolas Cage, and US Navy Commander Kevin Dunn are the best of friends, and they work together to ensure that the US Secretary of Defense is escorted to and fro a boxing match safely. But during the match, a shooting happens, and some people of dubious importance to the plot get killed. Rick suspects a conspiracy at foot, and learns about 3/4 of the way through the film that his old friend Kevin is behind the conspiracy. Nevertheless, upon meeting Kevin, we gauge the following. 1. That Kevin is seemingly a nice guy, even though in reality he is duplicitous. 2. That he is friends with Rick and seemingly wants the same objective, even though he really has a different objective at heart. 3. His dialogue with Rick is good, and that the two alleged friends will work together until Rick finds out that he has been betrayed. And 4. That Kevin lives in the modern world, or at least in the 1990s, and works in the security sector. In addition, Kevin is introduced to us early on in the film, highlighting his importance to the narrative. 7. When you don't show hints of your secondary character's true personality, goals, and/or struggles during his introduction. While I recommend that you show hints of your secondary character's true personality, agenda, and/or struggles when you introduce him to the story, you don't have to. It is not a necessity. Indeed, you can introduce your secondary character with a completely different nature to the person he becomes by the end of the narrative, which makes for a great story arc. A character who comes across in a very different way to the person he becomes is Samwise Gamgee, played by Sean Astin, in The Lord of the Rings. We first meet Sam at Bilbo's 111th birthday party. Sam appears shy as he wants to dance with his romantic interest, Rosie, but doesn't have the confidence to go up to her and ask her. So Frodo pushes him, and then Sam dances with her. Sam's shy nature here is in contrast to the person he becomes after Gandalf tells him to be a loyal and supportive friend and go with Frodo to destroy the ring in Mount Doom. After Gandalf tells him this, Sam becomes bold and brave, which gives him a fantastic, wonderful story arc. Again, while I would hesitate to advise you not to show any hint of your secondary character's goals, personality, and/or struggles for the upcoming narrative, you can do it, and it has been done successfully as well, as the case with Samwise Gamgee shows. You just have to think carefully about how you want your secondary character to develop. Conclusion. A general tip that we can learn from this video. From this video, I hope that you can deduce that the best way to introduce your secondary character varies depending upon what role you want him to play in the story. Nevertheless, if you wish for your secondary character to have a significant impact on the plot, it is best to introduce him as early as possible, i.e. within the first fifth to third of the narrative. That is not to say that there are no exceptions to this tip, but if you look at the majority of examples that we've discussed, they tended to have been introduced relatively early on in their respective narratives, as was the case for Hermione, Selina Kyle, Brom, Lord Henry Wotton, Kevin Dunn, and Samwise Gamgee. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I really hope you have enjoyed this video, found it interesting, and that it helps to make the writing process a little easier for you as well. Like, comment and hit that subscribe button and tell me, what do you think of my tips? What do you think I've missed out? And when do you think is the best time to introduce your secondary characters? Moreover, my debut fantasy novella, The Sultan's Daughter, is out. If you are looking for a book that is short, fast-paced and full of suspense, then check it out. And then you will be able to see whether or not I keep to my own writing tips as well. I have left a link for the book in the description below. Otherwise, join me next time when we'll continue on the introducing front by looking at how to introduce your villain. Until then, keep well. Once again, guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it and I hope you've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and then you will be the first to receive more awesome content from my channel, and I hope to see you again soon.